Listen closely because what I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. My name is Elias Hawthorne, and I'm 71 years old. Until that Sunday, I honestly believed I was living in my son's house out of charity. I thought I was just an annoying old man, eating bread that wasn't mine. Oh, if only I had known the truth from the beginning. But I didn't. I was a fool who stayed silent for too long. It was Sunday, October the 13th, to be exact. The sun was beating down hard on the backyard patio of the house in Plano, Texas, in that subdivision where the homes have big yards and two-car garages. My son, Marcus, had fired up the grill early. The smell of the ribeye steaks mixed with the smoke from the charcoal. I was sitting in my usual spot at the end of the white plastic table, watching my son flip the meat with the tongs I had given him for his birthday. Simone had set the table nicely with the fine china we bought 15 years ago for their wedding. Wait, we bought? No, I bought them because back then, Marcus was making next to nothing as a shift manager at the manufacturing plant. But those details are forgotten now, aren't they? Favors from the past evaporate like smoke from the grill. The guests were Darius and Jasmine, a couple from the neighborhood. He works for an insurance company, and she's an elementary school teacher. Decent, respectable people from those families that go to church on Sundays and wave to their neighbors. They had arrived at noon with a bottle of high-end bourbon and flowers for Simone. I didn't know them well. I'd only seen them at a couple of family gatherings. "Mr. Hawthorne, how are you doing?" Darius had asked when he arrived, with that respect you rarely see in young men anymore. "Good, thanks. Always working," I answered, because it's true. At 71, I still get up at 6 in the morning. I make breakfast for my grandkids. I drive them to school in my 14-year-old Dodge Ram pickup. I go to the supermarket and I help around the house. I'm not one of those old men who sits around watching television all day. Jasmine asked about my health and the grandkids. Simone answered for me, as she always does, as if I were deaf or mute. "He's doing fine, though he gets tired faster now," she said, placing a basket of warm tortillas on the table. I didn't say anything. I never say anything. I learned how to be invisible in this house 2 years ago, when I moved in. 2 years since Mylena died. 2 years since I sold the 3 repair shops I built with these hands that smell of grease and hard work. 2 years living in the small office room next to the garage. Because it's all that's available, Dad. You know the house isn't that big. The grandkids came running down the stairs. Anya, 17, already a young lady with her cell phone glued to her hand, and Kyle, 14, skinny but smart like his grandpa. "Grandpa!" Kyle shouted, sitting down next to me. Anya gave me a kiss on the forehead. She smelled like the designer fragrance I bought her last week. "Kids, say hello to the guests first," Marcus told them, and they obeyed. I have good, well-behaved grandkids, I'll give them that. The food was excellent. Lena taught Simone how to cook when they were dating. Grilled steak, refried beans, guacamole with lots of lime, just the way I like it, and sauces that would burn your tongue off. Marcus served domestic light beer for everyone, even for me, though I prefer sweet tea. And we talked about everything. Darius told jokes. Jasmine asked for the guacamole recipe. The kids talked about school and their teachers. Marcus and Simone looked happy, relaxed. I listened and nodded and laughed when appropriate. My usual role, the grandfather who doesn't cause trouble, doesn't offer opinions, and is grateful just yet to be there. "So, are you two planning any trips?" Jasmine asked Simone. "We want to go to the Florida Keys in December. Simone was enthusiastic. It was her third beer, and her face was flushed. Oh, we want to go on a Caribbean cruise. Marcus saw an awesome all-inclusive package online, but it's tough with all our expenses. And is Mr. Hawthorne going with you? Darius asked, turning to me with a smile. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Simone and Marcus looked at each other, and I saw something in their eyes that I didn't like. A look of annoyance, like when children are caught misbehaving. Then Simone uttered the words that broke my heart. No, he's staying behind. I'm sick of supporting your father, Marcus. He spends money as if he had it, but he lives off us. The $800 he gives us doesn't even cover the electric bill. My fork froze in the air, halfway between the plate and my mouth. I felt as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown on me. Darius and Jasmine looked down, uncomfortable. Anya and Kyle went silent, staring at me with those big eyes they inherited from their grandmother. But what hurt the most was what my son said. My Marcus, the boy I carried on my shoulders, the one I taught to drive, the one whose college tuition I paid. She's right, Dad. We need to talk about your expenses. You bought new clothes last week. You spend money on your expensive medication. This money you give us isn't enough. This is our house, and our rules apply here. Our house. As if I were a stranger. As if the $800 I give them every month were a handout, and not my fair contribution. As if working 55 years as a mechanic didn't give me the right to buy a new shirt, or my blood pressure pills. Simone, emboldened by her husband's support, kept going. Plus, you always leave the lights on. You waste a lot of water, and you eat as if the food were free. As if it were free. I, who for 2 years have made breakfast for this family without charging a dime. I, who drive the grandkids around without asking for a penny of gas money. I, who help with groceries. Who fix everything that breaks in the house. Who has never raised my voice or made a sour face. Sat there feeling my stomach clench and my mouth go dry. My eyes started to tear up, but I swallowed the tears. I wasn't going to cry in front of the guests. I wasn't going to give Simone that satisfaction. Jasmine mumbled something about the weather. Darius cleared his throat and said the steak was delicious. The grandkids looked at me with sad faces, especially Kyle, who is very sensitive. But no one spoke up in my defense. No one. I slowly stood up, feeling all 71 years in my knees. I placed my napkin beside my plate, though I had barely touched my food. "Excuse me," I said in the calmest voice I could manage. "I'm not hungry anymore." I walked toward my little room, the one that is about 10 by 13 feet, with my twin bed, my small dresser, and the little table where I keep my important things. I closed the door quietly, sat on the bed, and stared out the small window that faces the garage. The meal continued outside, but without laughter. I heard Darius and Jasmine leave early, without saying goodbye to me. I heard Simone stacking the dishes, muttering things I didn't want to understand. I heard Marcus turn on the television to watch football, life as normal, as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just stabbed a knife into my heart in front of strangers. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. About the years I worked double shifts to pay for Marcus's education. About the times I went without food so he could have new athletic shoes. About the wedding I paid for, the honeymoon, the car I bought him when he got his first good job. I thought about my Lena and how proud she was of our son. Marcus is a good boy, Elias. He's going to take care of us when we're old. Poor Lena. She died without seeing what her beloved boy had become. At 4 in the morning, I got up and turned on the lamp. I opened the dresser and pulled out the file folder I keep at the bottom, under the linens, I don't use anymore. The folder with all my important papers, the ones I had never shown Marcus because I thought it wasn't necessary. The deeds, the payment receipts, the contracts, everything was perfectly stored. Everything in order. Everything proving a truth that Marcus and Simone didn't know. A truth that no one knew, except for me and my late Lena. A truth that was about to change everything. Because it turns out, the house where I live as a burden, the house where Marcus's rules apply, the house where I'm no longer welcome. I bought that house 5 years ago, with my own money and my own hard work. Yes, my dear Marcus, your dependent father, your father who spends money as if he had it, your father who can't even cover the electric bill. That father is the owner of the house you live in. And it was about time you knew it. With trembling hands, I opened the yellowing folder where I keep everything that truly matters. Deeds, receipts, contracts. My whole life documented in papers that smell of age and secrets. There was the document that would change everything. The purchase agreement. Property located in the Northwood subdivision in Plano, Texas. Price, $280,000. Buyer, Elias Hawthorne. Date, March the 15th, 2018. 5 years earlier, Marcus had told me he'd found the perfect house to start his marriage with Simone. Dad, it's beautiful. It has 3 bedrooms and a big backyard. It's in a really safe area. But it costs almost $300,000. We'll never be able to afford it. I remember his sad face, how Simone cried because their dream of owning their own home had fallen through. What did I do? What any father does for his son. I sold one of my repair shops, the one on Veterans Boulevard, the one that took me 10 years of work to build. I went to the Wells Fargo branch at the mall at Stonebriar, withdrew the money, and gave it to Marcus. It's your early wedding gift, son. The house is yours. I put it in his name from the very beginning. But now, sitting on my small bed in the utility room, looking at these papers under the lamplight, I realized my mistake. I should have remained the owner. I should have thought about my own future. But I didn't. I believed in the movies where children take care of their parents out of love, not obligation. Do you know what the bank transfer receipt says? Concept. Purchase of real estate for family gift. I signed it with my own hand, with the illusion of a father who believes his son will be eternally grateful. I was a fool. Forgive the expression, but sometimes the truth hurts so much that only harsh words can express it. I closed my eyes, and all the memories hit me at once, like turning a faucet on full blast. I saw myself at 16, a skinny kid with already calloused hands, showing up at Gus's garage in South Dallas. Boy, if you want to learn this trade, you have to start at the bottom. You'll clean tools, you'll sweep, you'll fetch coffee, and if you prove yourself, I'll teach you. I worked for Gus for 15 years, earning a pittance, learning every secret of engines, every trick to repair what other mechanics gave up on. 15 years saving every dollar, hiding the money for my dream, owning my own shop in a cookie tin. I achieved it at 31. Hawthorne's Auto Repair. The blue sign I had painted red. Independence Alley. Number 234, Rail Yard District. A tiny, damp place with a dirt floor and used tools. But it was mine. I remember my first customer, an old man named Armando, with his 1992 Honda Civic that wouldn't start. I charged him $40. He paid me $50. For being the first, he told me. I treasured those wrinkled bills as if they were gold. Marcus was born when I was 34. Lena put him in my arms, and all red and wrinkled like a raisin. He looks just like you, Elias, she told me, crying with happiness. I looked at him and thought, this child will have everything I didn't. He will study. He will be a professional. He won't break his back like his father. And I kept my promise. When Marcus was 6 and needed shoes for school, I worked until 10 at night to pay for the Nikes he wanted so badly. When he was 12 and wanted a mountain bike, I sold my motorcycle to buy it for him. When he got to high school and asked to go to the Northwood Academy because all his friends went there, I took on extra work on the weekends. At 45, I opened the second shop on Main Street, bigger and better located. By then, I had 5 employees and a clientele that recommended me all over the city. Go see Elias Hawthorne, they'd say. That man knows how to fix cars. Marcus was already in college at Stallings College, very diligent. The third shop came when I turned 52 on Highway 75 South, the biggest one of all, with hydraulic lifts and computerized equipment. Hawthorne's Auto Repair, Transmission Specialists, the radio ad read. Marcus was finishing his degree in business administration. Dad, when I graduate, I'll help you with the business, he'd say. But it never happened. He got a job at an auto parts company. He earned good money. He felt important with his desk and his tie. At 25, he told me he wanted to marry Simone, a pretty, educated girl from a decent family in the American Quarter. Dad, we want to have a nice wedding, but we need help. How much did I spend on that wedding? $18,000. The Marriott ballroom, food for 200 guests, a live jazz band, and Simone's dress, which cost $2,000 by itself. It's the wedding of my only son, I explained to Lena when she saw the bank statement. I'm not going to hold back on giving him the best. She understood. Lena always understood. Just don't leave yourself broke, old man, she'd say with that little smile she used when she scolded me gently. 3 years later, Anya, my first grandchild, arrived. Marcus needed a bigger SUV for the family. Dad, I saw a used Ford Expedition. It's in great shape, but they want a $20,000 down payment. There I went again, pulling from my savings. Then Kyle arrived. And again, Dad, we need to move houses. The apartment is too small now. And 3 years ago, when Marcus wanted to buy the BMW X5, he came to the shop very nervous. Dad, the bank approved the loan, but I need a co-signer, someone to take responsibility if I can't pay. $48,000 was the debt. I co-signed without thinking twice. He was my son, my blood. How could I not trust him? But everything changed when my Lena died. Pancreatic cancer took her in 6 months. From one day to the next, I was alone in the house, in the rail yard district, the one we bought when we were newlyweds and where we raised Marcus. The walls closed in on me. Every corner reminded me of her. The shop no longer excited me. I woke up listless. I ate once a day. Marcus and Simone invited me to stay with them. Dad, you can't be alone. Come live with us. There is a little room next to the garage you can fix up for yourself. I thought it was a son's love, genuine concern. I sold the 3 repair shops for $400,000, a fortune to me. I thought, this is enough for the rest of my life. I won't be a burden to anyone. But from the first day, they treated me like a visitor who had overstayed his welcome. Dad, this room was for storage. It doesn't have its own bathroom. You'll have to use the one downstairs. Dad, the kids need to study in the afternoons. Try not to make noise. Dad, Simone cooks for the family. If you want something special, You have to ask her in advance. And I was grateful. Thank you, son, for giving me shelter. Don't worry about me. I'll adapt. Take this $800 to help with the expenses. I don't want to be a burden. $800 was a small amount to me, but it represented my dignity, my way of feeling like I was contributing. Now, with these documents in my hands, I understand everything. I was never a visitor in this house. I was never a burden. I never lived on charity. This house is mine. I bought it. I paid for it. I gave it to Marcus because I loved him, because I wanted him to be happy. But he believed it so much that he forgot where it came from. And the $400,000 from the sale of the shops is sitting in my Wells Fargo and Chase bank accounts. Marcus thinks his father is living off a measly Social Security check. He doesn't know that his poor, dependent father has more money than he'll ever earn in his entire life. Do you know what the most painful part is? That for 2 years, I believed their version of the story. I believed I was the poor, troublesome grandfather who wasted other people's money and didn't contribute anything. I got used to apologizing for existing, doing everything in silence, not to bother anyone, and eating leftovers without complaining. But Simone's words at dinner woke me up, supporting your father. As if the $800 I give every month were a handout and not my collaboration. As if the breakfasts I prepare, the errands I run, the grandkids I watch didn't count for anything. As if 55 years of honest work gave me the right to nothing. Marcus said this is his house, and technically, he's right, because the deed is in his name. But morally, humanly, this house is mine. I weighed for it with my sweat, my work, and the love I have for him. I gifted it to him because I believed he would always respect me, that he would care for me just as I cared for him. I was wrong, and now it's time to correct my mistake. I put the papers away and took out my cell phone. I looked up the number for Mr. Henderson, the attorney who helped me sell the repair shops. The screen displayed, Mr. Henderson, Legal Services. It was 4:30 in the morning. In 5 hours, I would call him and ask him something I already suspected, something I learned when I processed the gift deed for this house. In Texas, gifts can be revoked due to the ingratitude of the recipient. Marcus and Simone are about to learn a lesson I should have taught them a long time ago. They are going to learn that respect is not begged for, it is earned. They are going to learn that gratitude is not optional, it is mandatory. They are going to learn that humiliating the person who gave you everything has consequences. And I am going to get my dignity back, even if it is the last thing I do in this life. At 5:30 in the morning, I got out of bed without making a sound. I had slept maybe 2 or 3 hours, but my body couldn't stay still. Ideas were bubbling in my head like boiling water. A perfect plan had formed by itself overnight. It wasn't vengeance, I felt. Understand me well. It was something deeper, cleaner, justice. I took a cold shower in the shared bathroom, trying not to wake anyone up. Then I opened my small dresser and took out the navy blue suit I hadn't worn since Lena's funeral. The same one I used when I went to sign important contracts, when I closed 6-figure deals. When I was Elias Hawthorne, the businessman, not the dependent grandfather. The white shirt still smelled of the cedar closet. The red tie with small gold figures was a gift from Lena for our 30th anniversary. My leather shoes, bought at the mall at Stonebriar when I opened the third shop, were polished like mirrors. I looked in the small dresser mirror and recognized the man I used to be, serious, determined, respectable. The house was silent. Marcus and Simone were sleeping in their master bedroom, the one with the private bath and the whirlpool tub I installed when I bought the house. The grandkids were also asleep, oblivious to the earthquake that was coming. I tiptoed out, closed the door without a sound, and started my Dodge Ram without revving the engine too much, so as not to wake the neighbors. The streets of Plano were almost empty. A few people leaving the 6 o'clock church service, a couple of bakery trucks making their morning rounds. The cold October air hit my face when I rolled down the window. I felt different, renewed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Mr. Henderson's office was downtown on the second floor of a yellow colonial-style building. I arrived at 7:10 and waited in the truck, watching the square fill with vendors setting up their stalls, musicians with their guitars, flower sellers, early tourists with their cameras. The normal life of a city that didn't know Elias Hawthorne was about to change his history. At 7:30, I walked up the marble stairs. The secretary, a young woman with glasses, greeted me with surprise. "Mr. Hawthorne?" What a surprise. The attorney doesn't arrive until 8. "I'll wait," I told her, sitting in one of the leather chairs. "It's urgent." The young woman offered me coffee. I accepted, even though my hands were shaking, and I knew the caffeine would only make my nerves worse. But I needed to stay busy. I needed time to pass faster. In my brown leather briefcase, the one I used for important meetings, I carried all the documents, deeds, receipts, contracts, my entire life, in sealed and signed papers. Mr. Henderson arrived at 8:15. A man my age, well-groomed gray hair, an impeccable gray suit. We had known each other for 15 years. He had handled all of my legal affairs, the purchase of the shops, the contracts with suppliers, the final sale of the business. "Elias, what a surprise. How's the family?" "The grandkids are fine. The family is as it is, counselor. That's why I'm here." In his office, surrounded by bookshelves filled with civil codes and volumes of jurisprudence, I told him everything. Every detail of Sunday, every word from Simone, every gesture from Marcus. The attorney listened intently, taking notes in his leather notebook. "Mr. Hawthorne, let me see the gift documents." I handed him the complete folder. He reviewed every paper with the meticulousness of someone who has seen many similar cases. Then he took off his glasses and looked at me steadily. "Mr. Hawthorne, according to Chapter 637 of the Texas Civil Code, a gift can be revoked due to the ingratitude of the recipient when they commit acts that demonstrate a lack of recognition toward the giver. Do you have witnesses to what happened?" My son's friends heard everything. Darius and his wife Jasmine and my grandkids were also present. Were there other prior instances of mistreatment? I told him about the 2 years of silent humiliations, the constant disrespect, the house rules that treated me like an unwelcome visitor, the way Simone ignored me as if I were an old piece of furniture. "Enough," the attorney said, closing the folder. "This constitutes notorious ingratitude according to the code. The process can take between 3 and 6 months, but we can start immediately. We can also request a precautionary measure so that you can return to the house if you wish." "I don't want to go back, counselor. I want them to learn their lesson. I want them to know what it's like to lose what they took for granted." "I understand. What else can I do for you?" "I need you to prepare all the papers today, and I need you to recommend a trustworthy notary." I left the office at 9:15 with an appointment for 4 that afternoon. Mr. Henderson was going to have all the documents ready. He also gave me the number of a public notary he trusted, just in case I needed to make any changes to my will or power of attorney. My next stop was the Wells Fargo branch at the mall at Stonebriar, where I've had my main account for 20 years. I arrived just as the doors were opening. The manager, a professional woman, greeted me with the professional courtesy they reserve for clients with important accounts. "Mr. Hawthorne, how can we help you?" "I need to make several important transactions. First, I want to withdraw $50,000 in cash." She blinked in surprise. "That's a considerable amount, Mr. Hawthorne. Are you sure? We can handle it with bank transfers or cashier's checks." "In cash," I repeated. "And I also need information about a car loan where I appear as a co-signer." She asked me to wait while she checked the system. 5 minutes later, she returned with a folder and a look of concern. "Mr. Hawthorne, you are indeed listed as a co-signer on a loan for $48,000 in the name of Marcus Hawthorne. The current balance is $32,000. Is there a problem? I want to withdraw my co-signing today." The manager went pale. "Mr. Hawthorne, if you withdraw your guarantee, the bank is obligated to notify the credit holder and demand that they present a new co-signer or liquidate the entire debt in a period of no more than 30 days. If they fail to comply, we will proceed with the repossession of the vehicle." "Perfect. That is exactly what I want." "Are you sure? Your son could lose his car." "My son is going to lose many things if he doesn't learn to value what he has." I stayed at the bank until 11 in the morning, filling out forms, signing documents, and waiting for them to process the withdrawal of the co-signer guarantee. I put the $50,000 in cash in a briefcase I borrowed. I had never carried so much cash, but I needed it to feel the weight of my decision, to remind myself that I wasn't the poor old man they thought I was. From the bank, I called Chase Bank, where I kept my second account. "I want to close the account and transfer all the money to TIAA Bank," I told them. $370,000, the rest of the sale of my shops. "Could you come this afternoon at 2? My last stop of the morning was TIAA Bank, at a branch across town in North Dallas. I wanted my accounts to be far away, where Marcus couldn't easily find them. I opened 2 new accounts, one checking and one investment. I deposited the $50,000 in cash and arranged the transfer of the money from Chase Bank. "Mr. Hawthorne," the account executive asked me, "may I ask why you are moving all your resources to our bank?" "Family problems," I replied. "Sometimes you have to protect yourself from your own blood." The man nodded with understanding. In his line of work, he had surely seen everything. I returned home at 2:30 in the afternoon. My Dodge Ram sounded different, as if it, too, knew that things had changed. On the way, I bought 2 large suitcases at Macy's at the mall at Stonebriar. If I was going to leave, I was going to do it with dignity. Marcus was at work. The kids were at school. Only Simone was home, wearing sweatpants and slippers, watching her afternoon show. When I walked in with the suitcases, she looked at me curiously but didn't say anything. She was still not speaking to me after what happened on Sunday. In my little room, I started packing methodically. Clothes in one suitcase, important documents in my briefcase, Lena's mementos in a shoebox, photos of Marcus when he was a child, the letters he wrote me when he was in college, the drawings the grandkids had made me. Simone walked past the window several times, spying on me. Finally, she couldn't resist her curiosity and knocked on my door. "Mr. Hawthorne, are you okay?" "Perfectly," I replied, without turning to look at her. "I've never been better." "Are you traveling? When will you be back?" That's when I turned and looked her in the eye. "I'm not coming back, Simone. I'm leaving forever." She stood silent for a moment, processing the information. "Because of Sunday?" Because of Sunday? Because of a lot of things. Because of 2 years of a lot of things. Mr. Hawthorne, I was drinking. I didn't mean to... Yes, you did. I interrupted her. You just never thought there would be consequences. She left without another word. I heard her talking on the phone, probably calling Marcus, but I didn't care anymore. In 4 hours, I had an appointment with the attorney. In a few weeks, they would receive the lawsuit for the revocation of the gift. In a month, Marcus was going to lose the BMW, and I was going to recover my dignity. At 5 in the afternoon, I closed the suitcases. Everything important in there. A life of 71 years reduced to 2 suitcases and a briefcase, but I felt free, freer than I had felt in years. Simone was in the kitchen when I left with the bags. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't say it to her either. I loaded the bags into the Dodge Ram and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw the house for the last time, the house I bought with my money, that I paid for with my work, that I gave away out of love, and that I was now going to recover for justice. Marcus and Simone were going to learn that in life, everything comes with a price, and that humiliating the person who gave you everything is the most expensive mistake you can make. Marcus arrived home from work at 6:30. As always, I heard him close the door of his BMW, greet Simone in the kitchen, and pour himself a glass of water. The familiar sounds of a house that was no longer my home. I waited for him to go change his clothes, for him to see the suitcases on my bed, for him to realize that something had changed forever. I didn't have to wait long. 10 minutes later, he appeared in my doorway, still in his work shirt with his tie loose around his neck. His face showed confusion, like a child who doesn't understand why his favorite toy is broken. Dad, what are you doing? I continued folding my last shirt, the one Anya had given me for Father's Day. I'm leaving, Marcus. Where are you going? To a place where I'll be respected. He stood framed in the doorway, as if he couldn't process my words. Marcus had always been slow to understand emotional situations. Since he was a child, when his mother got angry with him, it would take him hours to realize what he had done wrong. Dad, don't exaggerate. Simone had been drinking on Sunday. She didn't mean to say that. And you, Marcus? Were you also drinking when you said, "This is your house"? For the first time in 2 years, I saw him look uncomfortable. He put his hands in his pockets, looked at the floor, and cleared his throat, just like he used to when I scolded him about his grades. Dad, I just wanted to support my wife. You know how women can be sometimes. Don't blame it all on her. I interrupted him by closing the suitcase with a snap. You spoke your own words. You talked about your rules in your house. You treated me like a nuisance. Just then, his cell phone rang. His ringtone was a generic country tune. How ironic, I thought. Marcus looked at the screen and frowned. It's the bank, he murmured. That's weird. It's too late for sales calls. He answered with the professional voice he used for work. Hello, Marcus Hawthorne. From where I stood, I could hear the conversation. A female voice, formal, courteous, but firm. It was the manager from Wells Fargo. Mr. Hawthorne, we are calling to inform you that the co-signer on your auto loan withdrew their guarantee today. You need to present a new co-signer or liquidate the full balance of $32,000 within 30 business days. Otherwise, we will proceed with the repossession of the vehicle. I watched Marcus's face change color from dark to pale yellow. His eyes widened like saucers. What? But my dad is the co-signer. There must be a mistake. There is no mistake, sir. Your father, Elias Hawthorne, personally came in this morning to withdraw his guarantee. The documents have already been processed, and re-encoded. Marcus looked at me fixedly as he spoke, with a mixture of panic and confusion. Can they do that without notifying me? We are notifying you now, sir. You have 30 business days starting tomorrow. We will send the official notification by certified mail. Have a nice day. The call ended. Marcus was left holding the phone, staring at it as if it were a strange object. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Dad, he finally said, his voice cracking. What did you do? What I should have done a long time ago. I got my dignity back. But they're going to take my car. No, Marcus. They're going to take your car. The car you bought with my guarantee, believing you were entitled to my money forever. Simone appeared in the doorway. She had heard the shouting. She was wiping her hands with a dish towel, with that expression of a woman who knows something serious is happening. What's going on here? Why are you shouting? Marcus looked at her desperately. Simone, Dad withdrew his co-signer guarantee from the car. The bank is going to repossess the BMW if I don't come up with $32,000 in 1 month. Simone turned even paler than Marcus. The BMW was her pride, the way she presented herself to her friends in the subdivision. Without it, they would have to go back to the old Civic they had stored in the garage. Mr. Hawthorne, she said in a trembling voice, why would you do that? We have never disrespected you. Seriously, Simone? I looked her directly in the eye. Was that what you said on Sunday? That you had never disrespected me? She looked down. She knew exactly what I was referring to. Marcus also understood, because he turned even paler. Dad, we already apologized. No, I corrected him. You haven't apologized. You're asking me not to let there be consequences for humiliating me. I went to my dresser, took out my leather briefcase, and placed it on the bed. Carefully, like someone handling sacred relics, I pulled out the yellowing folder containing all my important documents. Simone and Marcus looked at me without understanding, but something about my attitude made them nervous. I walked over to the small table I use as a desk and spread the papers out like a fan. Deeds, receipts, contracts, bank transfer confirmations. My whole life documented in official seals and notarized signatures. Simone, Marcus, come here. I want to show you something. They approached slowly, like people approaching a viper that could strike at any moment. I picked up the main document, the deeds to the house, and placed it in the center of the table. This house, I said in a slow, clear voice, without a tremor, I bought 5 years ago. $280,000. Here are the original deeds. Marcus leaned in to read the document. I saw his eyes scan the lines, looking for some mistake, some explanation that wasn't the obvious one. Simone also leaned closer, reading over her husband's shoulder. Here are the payment receipts, I continued, placing a pile of bank slips on the table. Wells Fargo, electronic transfer, March 15th, 2018. $280,000 exactly. Here is the original purchase agreement, I added, showing another paper. Elias Hawthorne, buyer. Occidental Realty, seller. And here, I said, putting down the last document, is the deed of gift I signed when I gave it to Marcus out of love, out of generosity, out of stupidity. The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Marcus's mouth was open. Simone had a hand on her chest, as if she couldn't breathe. Dad, Marcus stammered. I didn't know. You told me it was a wedding gift. And it was, I confirmed. But a gift can be taken back when the recipient becomes ungrateful. Simone found her voice first. Mr. Hawthorne, we didn't know any of this. Marcus always thought you had just helped us with the down payment, but that we had paid the rest. Seriously? I looked at her with sarcasm. Marcus paid $280,000 with his manager's salary. Do you think I'm an idiot, Simone? Marcus collapsed into the only chair in my room. He looked as if he had been hit over the head with a hammer. Dad, what do you want us to do? We get it. We know we were wrong. Tomorrow morning, my attorney is going to initiate a lawsuit for the revocation of the gift due to ingratitude. You will receive the official demand in a week. Simone let out a choked cry. You can't do that. This is our home. My children live here. This is my home, I corrected her firmly. I paid for it. I gave it to Marcus, and I am going to take it back when the judge confirms that you did not deserve my generosity. Marcus sprang out of the chair as if on springs. Dad, you can't do this. Where are we going to live? What will happen to Anya and Kyle? You should have thought about that before calling me a dependent in front of your friends. But we didn't know the house was yours. Exactly, I shouted for the first time in 2 years. You didn't know anything. You didn't know that the $800 you take from me every month comes from my money, not a miserable retirement check. You didn't know that the car you brag about is guaranteed by my assets. You didn't know that the dependent old man who bothers you has more money than you'll ever earn in your entire lives. Simone started crying, but they weren't tears of repentance. They were tears of panic from a woman who had just realized that her world was about to collapse. Mr. Hawthorne, please think about this. We can change. We can treat you better. It's too late for that, Simone. I've made my decision. Just then, the grandkids arrived home from school. I heard them opening the front door, shouting their usual greetings. Mom, we're home. Grandpa, where are you? Anya appeared in my doorway first, in her high school uniform with her backpack slung over her shoulder. Seeing the suitcases and our faces, she immediately understood that something serious was happening. Grandpa, are you leaving? Yes, my girl, I'm leaving. Kyle came running in behind his sister. When he saw the scene, he froze in the doorway. Why are you leaving, Grandpa? Did we do something wrong? My heart broke. These children were not to blame for anything. They had always treated me with kindness and respect. But their father needed to learn a lesson, and sometimes lessons hurt the whole family. No, my children, you never did anything wrong. I love you very, very much. But your father needs to learn a very important lesson about respect and gratitude. What lesson? Asked Anya, who at 17 understood more than she let on. I looked at Marcus and Simone, who avoided my gaze. The lesson that everything in life is earned and can be lost. That nothing is forever if you don't care for it. That humiliating the person who gave you everything is the most expensive mistake you can make. Grandpa, don't go, Kyle begged, hugging my waist. We love you. We respect you. Tears spilled out without my permission. I hugged my grandkids with all the strength I had. I memorized their scent, the feel of their hair, the way they clung to me as if they could stop time. I'll see you soon, I lied to them. When your dad understands what he did wrong, when he learns to value what he has, we will see each other again. Do you promise? Anya asked, her voice cracking. I promise, my girl. I took my suitcases and my briefcase. Marcus followed me to the front door, still in a state of shock. Dad, please don't do this. We can fix this by talking. I worked 45 years to buy you a house. I lived for 2 years, humiliated in my own house. The time for talking is over, Marcus. I loaded the suitcases into my Dodge Ram while the neighbors spied from their windows. They must have realized that something dramatic was happening in the Hawthorne family. Before getting into the truck, I looked at the house one last time. The stone facade, The garden I had designed myself. The automatic gate I installed to make it safer. My house. The house I bought with the sweat of 50 years of work that I gave away out of love, and that I was now going to recover for dignity. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, watching me drive away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Simone hugging the grandkids in the doorway. Everyone was crying. I saw the neighbors peering out curiously. I saw my life of the last 2 years disappear like smoke. But for the first time in a long time, I felt free. 3 months later, the judge in Dallas County Family Court rendered a verdict. Darius and Jasmine testified about what they had heard at the Sunday dinner. Anya, crying, confirmed the exact words of her mother and father. Mr. Henderson presented a perfect case, citing jurisprudence and articles of the Civil Code that left no room for doubt. The revocation of a gift due to ingratitude is appropriate when the recipient commits acts that demonstrate a lack of recognition toward the giver, the judge read. In this case, calling the donor of the house where the recipient lives a dependent, stating that he lives on another's charity when he is actually contributing financially to the home, and publicly humiliating him in front of third parties, constitutes notorious ingratitude, according to Chapter 637 of the Texas Civil Code. The sentence was conclusive. The gift was revoked. The house reverted to my ownership. Marcus and Simone had 60 days to vacate the property. They took the BMW too. Marcus couldn't find a new cosigner or the $32,000. A bank tow truck hauled it away one Tuesday morning while the neighbors watched from their windows, and Simone cried in the kitchen. Cold, legal justice, but justice nonetheless. 1 year later, I wake up every morning to the sound of the Atlantic Ocean waves crashing against the white sand of South Beach, Miami. Do you know what it feels like to live like this? Like being born again at 72. My condo is on the 5th floor of a coral-colored building with huge windows that look straight out onto the turquoise water. From my bed, I can see the fishermen's boats heading out before sunrise, like industrious ants who know nothing of resentment. I sold the house in Plano for $320,000. The price went up. Imagine that. The economic crisis caused real estate to skyrocket, and I thought I had lost money by giving it to Marcus. Sometimes justice is accompanied by unexpected rewards. With that money, I bought this 2-bedroom oceanfront condo for $180,000. I had enough money left over to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But complete tranquility bored me. A man who worked 55 years can't just sit around watching television all day, no matter how beautiful the view is. So, I looked for something to do with my hands, something to remind me who I am at heart. Elias Hawthorne, a mechanic. I found a small space 2 blocks from the beach on Ocean Drive. I rent it for $800 a month, almost the same amount I used to give Marcus for house expenses. The irony of life, isn't it? The sign says Hawthorne's Marine Repair, outboard motor specialist. It's a job I knew little about, but I learned quickly because the basics are the same: metal, fuel, spark, and a lot of patience. I open the shop 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. It's not for the money. Understand me, it's for the satisfaction of fixing what others have given up on. The local fishermen bring me their Yamaha and Johnson motors when no one else wants to touch them. Mr. Hawthorne, they tell me, you're the only one who can work miracles on these machines. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I spend my time walking on the beach, reading books I never had time to read when I worked so much. On Saturdays, I go to the seafood market and buy fresh fish to cook. On Sundays, I sit on my balcony with a cold beer and watch life pass by. There's no rush, no schedule to keep, and no one to treat me like a nuisance. And Marcus, Simone, the grandkids? For 9 months, I heard nothing from them. Anya would send me messages occasionally. "Grandpa, we miss you." "Grandpa, when are you going to visit?" I replied with love, but without promising anything. "I love you very much, my girl. Take care." Through Anya, I found out how they fared after losing the house. They moved into a rented apartment in the rail yard district, near Marcus's job. 800 square feet instead of the 2,500 they had in my house. 2 bedrooms instead of 4, and 1 shared bathroom instead of 3. Simone had to find a job as a receptionist at a dental clinic, earning $1,200 a month. Marcus was still at his company, but now he walked to work because he lost the BMW and they couldn't afford another car. "Dad is really quiet," Anya wrote to me. "Mom cries a lot. Kyle asks about you every day." Messages that hurt, but that didn't make me change my mind. Marcus had to learn the full lesson, not just half of it. The change came on a Thursday morning in September. I was at the shop with my hands deep inside a Yamaha 40 horsepower outboard that wouldn't start. It smelled of burnt oil and the sea salt that permeates every crack in this town. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice from the entrance. "Mr. Hawthorne?" I lifted my head, and there was Marcus. But not the Marcus I knew. This man looked 10 years older, thin, with deep circles under his eyes, and cheap clothes. He was no longer the proud manager, with a starched shirt and polished shoes. He was someone who had been broken by life, and he knew it. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling, "I'm sorry." I wiped my hands with a greasy rag and looked at him steadily. For 9 months, I had waited for this moment, but now that it had arrived, I didn't know what to feel. Triumph? Pain? Relief? "What did you learn, Marcus?" He remained silent for a long minute, looking at the oil-stained concrete floor. When he raised his face, I saw tears in his eyes. "I learned that I never valued what I had, that I thought I owned something you gave me out of love, that I humiliated the man who gave me everything in life. What else? I learned that my kids lost respect for me when they saw how I treated their grandfather, that Simone sees me differently, as if I'm not the man she married, that without your support, without your money, without your quiet help, I am nothing." The words hit me like punches. It was what I wanted to hear, but it hurt just the same. Watching your son break is not easy, even if he broke himself. "How did you find me?" "Anya gave me your address. I paid for the bus ticket from Dallas to Miami, then a cab here. I spent the last of my savings." "And does Simone know you came?" "Yes. She was the one who told me I had to come, that it was time to swallow my pride and beg for your forgiveness, if necessary." I paused, looking at my son, who had become a humble stranger. This was what I had wanted to achieve with my justice. But now that he was in front of me, I wasn't sure if I liked the result. "Marcus, I'm going to make you a proposal. You can accept it or leave the way you came." "Anything, Dad. Whatever you say. You come work here with me for 6 months. You learn the marine engine business from scratch. Every dollar you earn working with me, you use to pay off the balance of the BMW loan that you still owe. I teach you. You work. You pay your debt with your own sweat." Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. "You're going to help me get the car back?" "I'm going to teach you how to earn it back, which is very different." "Where will I live?" "In the utility room of my condo. Small, with a twin bed and a shared bathroom. just like the room you put me in at your house. He understood the lesson immediately and lowered his head. I deserve it. I accept your terms, Dad. Whatever it takes. The next 6 months were a transformation I never thought I would see. Marcus arrived in Miami that same Thursday with a small suitcase full of used clothes. He moved into the utility room of my condo without complaining about the reduced space or the heat inside. His first day at the shop was a disaster. Marcus didn't even know how to properly hold a wrench. His office hands were soft, white, and without calluses. After 10 minutes, he was already sweating as if he had run a marathon. Dad, how do you take this carburetor apart? The way I taught you when you were 15 and weren't paying attention because you thought you'd be a manager your whole life. Little by little, day after day, week after week, I watched my son transform. His hands hardened, filling with calluses and small scars. His skin tanned from working with the shop door open under the Caribbean sun. The muscles in his arms became defined from lifting heavy engines. But the most important change wasn't physical. It was in his attitude. The arrogant manager who thought he owned everything became a humble apprentice who was grateful for every lesson. When he didn't understand something, he asked. When he made a mistake, he apologized. When I corrected him, I listened carefully. Dad, can you show me again how to calibrate the spark timing? Sure, son, but pay attention this time. The fishermen who came to the shop were initially suspicious of Marcus. This city boy knows how to fix engines? But when they saw how he worked, how he got his hands dirty, how he wouldn't give up, even if he spent hours on the same problem, they started to respect him. Mr. Marcus, said Pancho, an old fisherman who brought his boat in every month. You're learning the trade now. Your hands look like a worker's hands. Marcus smiled with pride, the same pride he once felt for his expensive suits and his BMW. But now it was earned pride, not gifted. In the afternoons, after closing the shop, we would walk on the beach and talk about everything we had never talked about. His childhood, his mistakes, how he had confused having things with deserving respect. Dad, when I was a kid, you were always working. I thought you gave me money because it was your obligation, not because it cost you sacrifices. Sons always think that, Marcus. It's normal. But the sons who grow up well learn to value those sacrifices when they become fathers. I never learned. Now you are learning. Every 2 weeks, Marcus pooled his shop earnings and sent it to the bank to pay off the BMW loan. It wasn't much, $300 every 2 weeks, but it was consistent. He asked to borrow money for bus fare to visit his family once a month. Simone and the grandkids came to visit every 2 months. They stayed for the weekend at a cheap hotel nearby. Anya told me that her father had completely changed. Grandpa, he's not the same as before. He's more humble, more grateful. Mom says he seems like a different man. Simone changed too. The proud woman who had called me a dependent now asked for my forgiveness every time she saw me. Mr. Hawthorne, I know I can't be forgiven by God for what I said, but I want you to know that I regret it every day. Forgiveness is earned, Simone. Marcus is earning it. You can, too. The 6 months were up in March, just 1 year after I had left their house. Marcus had paid off $13,000 of the BMW loan. He still owed almost $20,000. But the bank agreed to reactivate the loan when Marcus secured a new co-signer, his boss at the company where he still worked. On the last day, Marcus worked with me at the shop. We assembled a 75-horsepower Evinrude motor that had arrived in pieces. We worked in silence, each of us knowing perfectly what to do, like a team that had been functioning for years. When the engine started on the first pull, Marcus smiled with a satisfaction I had never seen in him. Dad, I've never been so proud of something I made with my own hands. Now you understand what it is to earn things, right? Yes, Dad, I finally understand. I closed the shop that afternoon, and we sat on my balcony, watching the sunset over the Atlantic Ocean. Marcus had calloused hands, sun-tanned skin, and the clear gaze of someone who has paid his debts. Marcus, you deserve my respect again. Thank you, Dad. And when I die, this time you will inherit. But now you know why, because I earned it. Exactly. Because you learned that everything in life is earned with work, sacrifice, and humility. That respect that is not a birthright. It's a daily conquest. That gratitude is not weakness. It's strength. Marcus returned to Dallas the next day. He got his BMW back, paying the loan religiously every month. Simone kept working, but now out of pleasure, not necessity. The grandkids write to me often, send me photos, and tell me about school. And I'm still here in South Beach, Miami, working 3 days a week at my marine engine shop, enjoying the ocean the other 4 days, free, peaceful, respected, with the satisfaction of someone who taught the most important lesson of his life. Unconditional love creates ungrateful children, but love with consequences creates good men. Elias Hawthorne, 73 years old, retired mechanic, proud grandfather, life teacher, finally at peace. Did you like my story? And which city of Buzz are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.